Here are 10 easy ideas for Halloween cakes and cupcakes. You don't need any cake decorating experience for these, and you can even do some of them with kids. All you need is parchment or wax paper for this first Halloween cake design. Make an eerie purple sky by tinting buttercream purple and then putting half into another bowl and adding a few drops of black to that. Spread this buttercream onto the top of the cake and smooth it, and then spread it around the top of the sides of the cake too. Spread purple around the bottom, and then mix the leftover purple and grey together and spread that over the middle. Press your spatula lightly into the frosting and drag it up and down as you spin the cake to make these zigzags, which blend the colours together to make ombre instead of stripes of colour around the cake. Smooth the frosting with a cake comb and leave the top edge uneven, like this, which is trendy at the moment, or flatten it by swiping sideways with your spatula, all around the cake. Now put the cake in the fridge for about an hour to chill and set the frosting while you make some stencils using parchment paper or wax paper. Draw a bat silhouette and fold the paper a few times before you cut it out so that you'll have a few identical bats. You don't need the surrounding paper for this, so throw that away. But for the next stencils, you'll do the opposite. Draw the outline of a haunted house, cutting along the bottom edge, and then cut the house out and throw that away, but keep the surrounding paper, which will be your stencil. I'm drawing a few windows and cutting those out too, which is an extra step that you can skip if you're in a rush. Trace around something round, like a bottle, to make a circle for a moon stencil too. Now you're going to apply these in 3 stages. Start with the bats, pressing them onto the cake on the darkest grey frosting towards the top, and they'll stick because the warmth of your fingers will soften the cold buttercream to make it slightly sticky as you push against the bats. Then press the moon stencil on so that it overlaps one of the bats. Pipe or spread white buttercream over the stencil, scraping over it a few times to flatten and smooth the frosting. And then peel the moon stencil off. Next, use edible glitter and a wide powder brush to gently dab the frosting over the bats so that there's quite a lot of glitter all around them. Then slide your spatula or a toothpick under each bat to peel it off, and it will look like the bats are flying in the moonlight. Now wrap the haunted house stencil around the cake, and you want this to wrap really tightly since the bottom edge is cut, so use pins to attach both sides to the cake. Add a drop of black to your leftover grey buttercream and spread this colour over the haunted house stencil and then scrape over it once or twice so that the black buttercream is smooth. Pull the pins out of the cake and peel the stencil off, and voila! If you're adding windows, put the cake into the fridge for 15 minutes to set the house and then press the final stencil onto the house. Then spread white buttercream over the windows. Scrape off the excess, peel the stencil off, and this cake design is so simple to make, but with glitter it looks so fancy. For this next cake, I'm using non-traditional Halloween colours, with pale pink and orange, which I love, but for this design you can use any colour or colours you like. Plain orange, orange and black, whatever you feel like. The 2 important things here are to use buttercream that isn't very stiff, so add a splash of milk to thin it out until you can stir it easily like this, and spoon it into a piping bag. The second important thing is to chill the cake in the fridge for at least an hour before you pipe onto it. Squeeze a blob of white buttercream onto the cake and then use a spatula to gently spread it in any direction. You're making floating ghosts on the cake. They don't all need to be identical, so pipe different sized blobs before you spread them, and go in different directions, so the ghosts are flying to the left, right, up, down. And when you finish making the bodies, melt some chocolate chips and put them into a sandwich bag like a Ziploc bag and cut a tiny piece off one corner. Squeeze the bag to pipe 2 eyes and a mouth onto each ghost. If the chocolate pulls away with the bag, use a toothpick to nudge it flat against the cake. The trick to melting chocolate without it seizing and becoming grainy or getting that white haze when it sets is to heat it slowly and gently. So if you use the microwave, choose 50% power for 30 seconds at a time, stirring before repeating, until the chocolate is smooth. For more detailed ghosts or any other figures, use the pointillist technique, where you outline a shape on your cake using a cookie cutter, or draw it with a toothpick, and then fill it in with tiny dots by using a small round piping tip, like a number 3. Your dots will look the neatest if you pipe in rows. This dotted effect is so unique and easy to make look neat, even if it's your first time doing it. This technique is a bit time-consuming, but I love the result. The consistency of your buttercream is really important for this. If it's too stiff, you'll have to squeeze the bag really hard to pipe the dots. Switch colours to add more details for a simple design like this, or a more elaborate one like this. And this is one of the cakes from my Layer Up program, which has 14 hours of video modules teaching hundreds of cake decorating techniques and designs. Start a free 7-day trial of my cake school by clicking the link in the top of the screen or in the video description, or go to britishgirlbakes.com. So, which ghosts do you prefer, swooshed or pointillist? Tell me in the comments. Make easy Halloween cake toppers with melted chocolate in a sandwich bag with the corner cut off, writing whatever word you like. The thicker the letters, the better. Press a toothpick into each letter and then pour sprinkles on top. The sprinkles will stick to the melted chocolate, but when they set, after about 30 minutes in the fridge, you can lift the letters up and poke the toothpicks into a cake to make a delicious cake topper. To write a longer Halloween message, like this one, use buttercream that's thinned out with a bit of milk so that you can pipe it with a small round tip and the lines won't break apart. If you struggle to pipe letters like this, which does take a bit of practice, use the pointillist technique, like I used for the second style of ghosts, and pipe dots to form your letters. It's much easier to pipe onto the top of a cake than the side of a cake, and if you pipe anything you don't like, as long as you've chilled the cake so the frosting is firm, you can just scrape the letters off with your offset spatula and start again. To make cute little monsters, layer a cake, or I'll show you how to do this with cupcakes in a second, and pop it into the freezer for 15 minutes or the fridge for 30 minutes. Then use a serrated knife like a bread knife to trim around the top to make a dome. Spread a thin layer of frosting to cover the cake, to stop it from drying out, and you can use the same colour as the monster's fur is going to be, or a flavour like chocolate, or the plain white buttercream, anything works. By chilling the cake before this, it will stay firm instead of leaning or toppling over as you trim it and frost it, and it will also be a lot less crumbly. Now put the buttercream for the fur into a piping bag with a grass tip, like this, or any star-shaped tip, like this 4B, or a 1M, or whatever you have. Start at the bottom of the cake, squeezing to push out the fur, and then releasing your pressure on the piping bag as you pull away, so that the buttercream pulls away neatly. Work your way up to the top of the cake, and piping from the bottom to the top is a good idea for 2 reasons. Firstly, so that you can see what you're doing, because if you start at the top, by the time you get to the bottom you'll have to crouch down to see where you're piping. And secondly, for fur piped with a grass tip, each row of fur will overlap the row below, so by starting at the very bottom you'll create this shaggy effect. Straight after piping the fur, while the frosting is still soft and sticky, cut mini marshmallows in half and press a toothpick through the middle of each half. Push a mini chocolate chip into that hole and you have an eyeball. Press the eyeballs into the monster's fur to complete the monster. You can do this with cupcakes instead, which is a fun activity with kids, and to make it easier, use an elastic band or a strong clip to pinch the piping bag at the top, so that it's easier to squeeze the buttercream out through the piping tip. With a few drops of colour and some mini marshmallows and mini chocolate chips, you can make these fun Halloween cupcakes in just a few minutes. Another easy monster option is to use a donut or mini bundt cake mould, spooning or piping cake batter into it. After they cool, make a drip by measuring 1 cup of white chocolate chips and then heating 1/3 of a cup of heavy cream or double cream until it starts to bubble. Pour the hot cream over the chocolate. Push all of the chocolate underneath the cream and let it sit for about a minute, and then stir it until it's smooth. And then add oil-based colour. This is yellow and blue to make green. Don't use water-based colours that you would use for buttercream, because those can make the chocolate seize. When the drip cools to room temperature, do a test drip on the side of the bowl, and you're looking for a thick, slow drip. Spoon this over the cakes, and it's best to chill the cakes first. I put this one in the freezer for 5 minutes just before, because the cold cake will help the drip stop dripping. Push in some candy eyeballs, and it's done! Another fun one to make with kids. Now let's make some pumpkins. Use a star-shaped piping tip, like this number 32 tip, or a medium round tip, like a number 8. Start on the edges and work your way in to make the pumpkins look more rounded and realistic. Now for the fun part that will grab everyone's attention. Pipe a few pumpkins onto parchment paper or wax paper, flat, and also standing upright, like these. Put them into the freezer for 10 minutes to chill and harden, and then brush them with edible gold paint, getting into all of the grooves to cover them completely, or just painting some accents. Then lift them up and press them onto your cake to make gold buttercream pumpkins. So elegant. Pipe stems using brown buttercream or chocolate buttercream, and a small star-shaped tip or a round tip. Such a cozy fall or autumn-themed cake. To make a pumpkin that's a jack-o'-lantern, frost your cake and put it into the fridge for at least an hour. Draw a face onto parchment or wax paper and cut out the features, leaving the rest of the paper intact. Press it down onto the cold cake and spread black frosting over the top, scraping a few times to leave a thin, flat layer. Then peel off the stencil and you have a jack-o'-lantern cake that took you 2 minutes to decorate. Which cake would you choose to eat? Which one would you make? Tell me in the comments and visit my cake school to learn hundreds of other cake designs and cake decorating techniques. Thanks for watching.